We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. The way to the end zone, and Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
So how about them fucking dogs? That's what I told them.
Hope it didn't take that long, yeah. Go Dogs.
Welcome to the 100 Sanford Podcast. We are in the building. It's something new. It's something delightful. It's something right. It must be something about that season coming about us right now. Foss, what is going on, partner?
Hey, man. We almost there. We almost there. We about to have some dog football, ready to kick this thing off. Everything that all the, I guess, the question marks, the ups, downs, we about to see what's really going on with the Georgia Bulldogs in 2023.
Yes, sir.
Well, later 2023, because you know what happened, 2023 at the top of the year and all, but you know what happened then. But ready to see what this 2023 season is going to be about. We got football this weekend. We're about to kick it off, man. That's all I got to say, because we got the expert in the house, Graham Coffey.
Oh,
and,
you're the expert, big man.
we got the expert in the house, Dog Central's own Graham Coffey. We about to see what's happening with these dogs, man. I'm excited about this season. It's kind of crazy that the expectations are high, but in a way is we're going on our third different season, if that makes sense. Like the outlook on the season and how they get it done is probably going to look a different way for the third consecutive year. You know what I mean? With, even though you had Stetson for the last two championships, the defense was a little different in that second year with Stetson. Now we're going to the third year, there's no Stetson. And so it's going to look a little different again. Will they air it out more? Will they air it out less? What's going to happen? It's going to look different, But I can say the one thing that's going to be a mainstay is, anaconda boa constricting deep, which, I'm glad we can always hang our hat on this side.
Yeah, man. I mean, before we go any further, we got to get proper introductions, because right now I don't even know. I don't even know if we're going to put the video out yet. But we got a new stream. We can see each other more clearly. The voices sound buttery. I mean, we actually look like a trio. We should go on tour and do something
like a real podcast.
Yeah, man. Feels. But yeah, man. You got this
for real though. You understand me? We've been bringing y'all the best in the business. Don't get it twisted.
Most definitely the best in the business. Now they can just see the face,
because y'all, yeah, see that, little, your auntie like it.
Hey, man, but look, real quick. We appreciate all the listeners. We want to, continue to give us your support. Go over to YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, like, follow, repost on IG, TikTok, and the X. Also, hit on over to the website, 100sanfordpodcast.com. Listen to all the old footage, see news takes, get all the edits that we continue to put out. Use them as wallpaper, use them as screensavers. I don't care what you do. Just continue to support our guy, Mitch. And as always, head on over to Dawg Central. The collaboration for the nation is what I call it. You get all that great material. You got My God, a podcast. You got my man, Graham Coffey. 100 Sanford's own. You got Field Street Forum breaking down recruiting, dog stats, and John tweets sports. So, hey, I'm excited, fellas. like George already said, we it's game week, baby. We can actually get into the dirt, the dust, and everything. I'm ready to go for this three-peat. I want a three-piece and a biscuit. That's what I really want right now. I don't know about y'all. I want a three-piece and a biscuit.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. It
Mhm.
is because like
Oh, I want it. It's
even
there.
yeah, I mean like even before the Oregon game last year, I remember I flew into Atlanta and I met my dad and we were hanging out at the hotel on Friday night and we were just like, it's not the usual like kind of pre kickoff adrenaline going on, like it was more low key and obviously, come to find out you didn't have anything to be worried about if you were a Georgia fan. They went and hung 49 on Oregon the next day. But, like, winning it in 2021, it just ended so many years of kind of like anxiety and I think nervousness and disappointment, obviously, for Georgia people that going into 2022, like, there was some hype, but nobody was really picking Georgia to repeat last year. And I remember thinking in my head, like, whatever happens this year, it's all good. Like they got the one in 2021. And now we're here in 2023. They've gone back to back. Nobody's ever done 3 in a row. So it's like, how do you measure success in this season? I think is the interesting spot for Georgia fans. Cause like, I don't think it's fair to say championship or bust is, the only way to call this a good year because nobody's ever done what they're trying to do right now. At the same time, I also look up and down the roster and I look up and down other rosters in college football. And I think that they got a really, really good shot to do it. And I think that there's, a very, very high chance they're back in the playoff. And then once you get there, it's just kind of, you play the games and you see what happens. But it's strange a little bit, I think, if you're a Georgia fan, because like none of this is normal, but it's been going on for so long now that it's starting to feel normal. And I'm trying to like kind of remind people to stay grounded in the 4 decades prior to this. Like this program's not going anywhere, but no matter what happens this year, I still think Georgia is the standard program in college football. Like that is the bar, they are the peak, they're the pinnacle. And whether they go 15-0 again or, whether they slip up somewhere in the regular season where we're not expecting, like nothing's going to change that in my opinion.
Graham, I think people want immortality.
Of course.
When you look at, it's never been done. The playoff era is going to change next year. People want immortality. They want those bragging rights going into the new system because it would take a phenomenal feat for you to go back to back in the new system coming. It's going to take, an act of God to go, do a three-peat in the new system. But right now, this is as close as you get to immortality. I personally think they have the talent to do so. I think that they have the schedule to do so. I think that they have the depth, the coaching. I think all the stars have aligned, quite honestly, for this to be the last year for the possibility of happening, for it to happen. Even when you look at some of the teams in the conference, you look at Bama not having the quarterback play, Bama not being as, they're still Bama.
We don't know what they are, right?
Right, we don't know what they are. But when you look at all the teams on paper, nobody really has what Georgia has with the stability, with the history, the recent history, the leadership, the momentum, everything it takes to be that team that reach immortality of going for the three-peat. And it's funny because Trey asked me, he said, I'm trying to put together a new video. I said, do the three-peat. You got the Lakers, you got Chicago Bulls, you got the Yankees, you got all these teams that have done three-peats. Let that be the video for 2023, or are we going to get it done? And I think we can, but, I know we're going to, get into that. But, George, what do you got to say about that before we get into the, some of the news and so forth of game week?
I think it's obviously, I think it's possible. The talent is there. Graham kind of made a great point. It's kind of like, is it fair to say three-peat or bust? It's not fair. Football is hard. It's hard to win a single game. It's very hard. There's one defeated in the NFL in the history is a you know what I mean?
Right.
100-year league. So and there's only been one team defeated. So it's hard to do. But like Graham said, you look at the roster, it's like they probably should. It would take. First of all, it takes luck to win it all. It takes some luck somewhere. At some point, a ball bounce or something. Last year, it was, of course they earned it, but a missed field goal, which there's typically a lot more made field goals than missed one. So you kind of almost
Hell,
count
go back to the
those
Missouri game.
points sometimes.
Yeah, go back to the Missouri game.
You know what I mean?
There's a hiccup there.
So so yes, it's gonna. It takes a little luck. It takes great health. You know what I mean? And so if all those things happen, if those things happen, especially if everyone stays healthy, it's reasonable to expect that they win at least, only lose one, maybe, I guess. But if we're keeping it real, they have the team to never lose this year. If you're keeping the standard, they have the team to not lose this year, especially with that schedule. Now the schedule isn't the cake people think it is. In my opinion, I don't think any of the teams we play could go on with our schedule. Like Kentucky's going to beat somebody that they're not supposed to beat. Tennessee is going to be, should be pretty good. South Carolina is going to beat somebody that they're not supposed to beat. You know what I mean? It's not, per se, is the cakewalk that people think it is. It's a cakewalk because that's the only reason it's a for sure cakewalk, in my opinion. But the topic at hand, I think Georgia, they definitely have what it takes, and there's no reason why they shouldn't three-peat.
The biggest reason in favor of a three-peat, in my personal opinion, because the roster, you brought it up, but injury luck can swing one way or another from season to season. Georgia's got depth probably to sustain a lot of injuries if they needed to, but and when you start facing the really good teams, that stuff matters. Those games sometimes come down to one or two players, but I think the biggest argument in favor of them repeating is exactly what Coach Smart said at media days. He said every full-time coach on this year's staff was on last year's staff. Every full-time coach on the back-to-back national championship staff was on last year's staff. Monken moved on, obviously, but you promote Bobo, who was there as an analyst. And Kirby said it. He said, when was the last time a national championship team can say that? They got the same strength and conditioning coach, got the same player development coach in Jonas Jennings. They have not all, but almost all the same people in the building. And they have 26 Georgia grads on that staff. And they care, and you talk about immortality, because that's what we are talking about here. That's what's at the end of the tunnel if they do this again. And you're talking about, I think, having the 26 Georgia grads on that staff, I think that's a huge advantage in this situation, because it's not about, what's going to be the next job that's waiting for me if we become the first staff to ever three-peat, or, all those kind of personal goals, or, new contracts and that type of stuff. That staff wants to do this because they love the University of Georgia, and they love each other in a lot of cases. Find me another team. I can't think of another program in the country, or maybe even another program ever, who has had both coordinators and the head coach that they all were on the team together at the same time. Like Muschamp, Bobo, and Kirby all played together. They all overlapped at one point. That's wild. I don't think that's ever happened. So it's interesting and it's unique. And like, I think that is kind of one of the secrets to Kirby's success. If you look at Georgia right now, where they are in terms of the build of the program versus like what Alabama did under Saban, and Saban weathered the staff turnover incredibly well for years and years and years, but eventually it gets hard to replace coordinators every year and all your position coaches, and they did that for a long time. And Kirby's not having to do that, even though they just came off 2 straight.
Well, Graham, you also got to look at the elephant in the room. I mean, you hate to say elephant when you're talking about Alabama, but it is what it is. Kirby was on those staffs. Really? Yeah. And so when it comes down to it, Kirby took what he can take from Nick, learning from Nick, but also took it over to Georgia, then established his own culture. And when you talk about 26 guys on your staff from the University of Georgia, along with what he's built in terms of recruiting, in terms of the players and the way that they interact with each other, that culture, it's poised to always win every year. I mean, you're always going to be in it. It's one of those things, especially for this year, where we talk about, could it be immortality? Culture can dictate that. It really can, because it's going to keep you in the good times, going to keep you in the bad times. It's going to raise guys above the bar. We're seeing it now coming out of camp where guys, you never thought a Humphrey was going to be possibly starting at corner. Hey, guess what? That culture, that development is now taking shape. We learn about Carson Beck and his statements, right? Not being prepared that year where he could have been the quarterback. Now he's learned about preparation, so now he's ready for this year. He's going to take a leadership role. Again, it's culture, because culture is going to keep you involved, right? Mm-hmm. And I just think that this team is poised, and it's special. It's a special thing to watch. I think folks should really not just gloss over what's happening. I mean, this is not something that's normal, man. I mean, Bama had their time, but it was different. That was a whole different era, a whole different way of things happening. But this is a very special thing that Georgia fans need to really pay attention to.
Well, and I mean, not just having that culture, but having that culture in the midst of NIL and transfer portal. It's wild, honestly, to sustain it. But I got a question for you guys. Have either of you watched the Swamp Kings documentary on Netflix, the Florida doc on the Meyer Tebow years?
I haven't been able to watch it for some reason. I pushed myself to, but who knows?
Yeah, I went to go press the button on Netflix, and I started getting a rash on my thumb.
Oh, yeah, you got a little twitch.
Yeah, man, it was like, it was kind of feeling nasty inside, Yeah.
I mean? No, I get it. I mean, I thought there was one thing in there that I thought was kind of applicable to where Georgia is in this very second time. And they were talking about, after they won it in 2008, like, I forgot, truthfully, that Tebow came back in 2009 and was there as a senior. And, they went 12-0 again until they met Alabama in the in the SEC championship game. Both of them were 12-0. Bama had been waiting for that game for 365 days, and but Florida, it was interesting. All of those players and coaches, they were kind of like, we never really had our shit together that entire year, and we still went 12-0. But like, we had a lot of infighting in the locker room, and there was a lot of resentment that was building because the amount of attention that Tim Tebow was getting, and him and Brandon Spikes were kind of the leaders of that team, and they started butting heads at different points, and you had guys off fooling around, man, and like, wilding out and doing crazy stuff. And this Georgia team, it'd be easy for that to happen, truthfully. Like, it's hard to keep people who are well-fed hungry, and somehow they've managed to do that, it seems, because like, all of the talk out of this fall camp has been that they haven't had, any type of like disciplinary issues. They had one player miss curfew by a few minutes one night, and that's it. And I mean, George, like that's not normal, right? Like,
they're
so
they're
yeah,
they're 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 locked in, man. I don't know what to say. I imagine there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with research and psychology, um, and all the things it takes to do this. Because this kind of, I can't say it's not uncharted territory because there have been other teams go back to back, but it's different, and so there's a really good opportunity to go to three-peat with this team schedule, roster, the state of other rosters, that may not be up to task um this year. You know what I mean? Next year could be somebody else's year, but this year, like it's really the table is set. You know what I mean? And so I think, like I said, I think it's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that maybe uh I guess just will help the team stay grounded. You know what I mean? And so because they have a theme every year, they have a slogan every year, and it's not just they're not pulling it out their butts. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and I think
It's based on it's based on something like the better never rest, and the blacks. Like I'm pretty sure they did some in-depth things, trying to figure stuff out. You're always trying to get an edge, and I feel like there's probably something that Kirby learned over the dark side. Trying to get an edge when you're on top.
yeah, but I think he's done a better job of it lately than Nick has. Like I think he's managed to keep his guys like hearing the message over and over again. And Van Pran
Well,
at media days, like I saw them try and kind of bait Cedric into like talking some smack, and like asking him questions about teams on the schedule and stuff. And he always had the perfect answer, of just like, oh, well, we're focused on like the next rep in practice and just getting better. And like, we got a lot of respect for those guys, but that's a long way from now. We're not really thinking about that. And on the flip side, you had Alabama guys like saying, hey, we're going 15-0 and winning a national championship. And we're tired of people disrespecting us and blah, 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 blah. It's good to have like some motivation from outside, but I don't think you can survive on that alone. Like you have to have that internal
you got to play.
kind of culture. Yeah, you can't have the fake juice. And like,
Yeah.
I love Mark Richt. I love Mark Richt and everything that Georgia has become. He laid all the groundwork for it, changed the program tremendously. But I do think there's, a little bit of a different vibe under Kirby, whereas like at time, the 2015 game against Alabama when Georgia was, standing outside their tunnel, like barking when Alabama came on the field, it was like, you knew right then that Georgia was about to get walloped. Right. And I feel like, I'm starting to see kind of some of those sort of like thump on the chest type things from some of Georgia's competitors, but like Georgia kind of has managed to just remain like very focused in the moment and, about the process of getting better. And ironically, that's what we always heard from Saban's teams.
Yeah. Hey, again, to me, it just goes back to culture. And one thing about it, too, is that when you recruit well, I know we talk about recruiting often and we follow recruiting. Everybody loves recruiting. Everybody loves a new shiny toy. Not every piece is a good piece. Not every player is a good player. And I appreciate these guys bringing in kids with high character, guys that understand it, guys that want to grind and get it. You heard from a couple of the players on different podcasts talking about Georgia's different. You don't come here for fun. And I think some of these kids, they're going places now for NIL. They're going places for fun. But when you go to Georgia, you're going there with a purpose. And I think these guys are mature enough to know and understand, especially in today's day and age, you got about a 2 to 3 year window for you to really make your splash at a big time university like, a Power 5 like Georgia, and for the NFL to kind of take notice. And they want to also be a part of that winning culture because everybody wants to win at the same time. So, but when you look at the high character these guys got, man, the Cedrics, the Malachi Starks, these guys that really embody what a student athlete is supposed to be like. We talk about student athletes. They are those guys, man. So I'm excited. I know you guys are, but Graham, we got to tap into you, Dawg Central. We got to go there. We need some news. We need some game intel. We need some practice intel. Yeah. What do you got right now?
What do I got right now, man? You put me on the spot.
Yeah, man, I got you on the spot. You the guy, man.
I mean, I think this is a very banged up football team, first of all, and it's kind of a blessing that they're starting the season with. I really would look at if I was a Georgia fan, I wouldn't draw too many conclusions over the next 2 weeks because I think they're going to treat this a lot like, and this is not meant as disrespect to UT Martin or Ball State, but they're going to treat this a lot like a preseason. They're going to get a lot of guys reps. They're not going to push anybody to play that might be, borderline. I think there's some guys that might want to play that they may hold back a little bit. And, you go down the injury report, there's a lot of big names on it, right? Like you've got, hold on, I got it right here pulled up. Obviously Branson's out for the season. Lawson Lucky, who was pushing to be the number 2 tight end. He just had that tightrope ankle surgery a couple weeks ago, so he's out. Ernest Green is probable. Tyrone Ingham Dawkins is probable with a foot injury. Ladd McConkey's got a back thing. He's probable. Mondon, questionable with a foot. Milton, questionable with a hamstring. Dejan Edwards, questionable with an MCL sprain. Kamari Lassiter, questionable. Jackson Meeks, questionable. Raylan Wilson, doubtful. Jonel Aguero, a guy that I think will play a lot of big snaps for Georgia this year. I doubt he plays on Saturday. So I think you're going to hold, probably 8 to 10, maybe even 12 significant players out of this game. And then I think the vibes around the team are pretty immaculate right now, though. Like they're excited. They're fired up to play. I think there's a lot of young guys that are looking at these first 2 weeks as an opportunity to show what they can do. You mentioned like Julian Humphrey earlier. I think he's going to be the guy that gets that nod at the number 2 corner spot, provided Lassiter is able to play. If Lassiter's not able to play, then, it'll be probably him and somebody else. I'm not sure if it'll be Green or Everett, to be honest with you. I think that whole battle is probably going to continue on to the season, but it sounds like Humphrey's going to get the opportunity to show his stuff first. And then, I think Georgia, I'm very curious to see what they do on offense on Saturday. Like, how much do they want to show? I think they want to establish Carson Beck is like, I think they want to put on film before they have to play South Carolina that like, hey, you want to creep up here and try and shut down the run, then like we will burn you deep. So I think we'll get to see him, let it loose a little bit. And there's a ton of wide receivers on this team. I think this is the deepest wide receiver group that they've had under Kirby. Rusty was talking about that last week. Like there might not be that Pickens in the room, that big time alpha dog, but like there's 7 or 8 guys that are going to create separation on a regular basis. So curious to see sort of what that looks like. And I think that they're going to use these first couple of weeks to build depth and get healthy. And then I think week 3, when South Carolina comes to town, you're really going to see like the full arsenal.
Well, I think we got to go back to what George said last week. Does it really matter? It does matter, but it doesn't matter. I hear all the injuries, and that's the key. You want to be healthy going into that South Carolina game, and when the bullets really start flying. But this is still an opportunity to kind of get your feet wet, get some stability about you, see what you have, what you don't have against live competition. Even though it's an FCS school right up the road or whatever, you know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to find when you're playing a team like this, but you still want someone else to play, someone else to hit. I mean, heck, these guys are banged up because they've been banging against each other for the last month and a half and just basically destroying each other's bodies. And we know how tough a Georgia camp can be underneath Kirby. I mean, Nolan Smith brought it up in the NFL. He said, you know what? Our practices here, I mean, at Georgia were much harder than they are with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, and he's like, it happens that way the entire season. We're still banging. So it's one of these games where, you know, you want to come out of it healthy, but you still want to see what these guys can do. And I'm looking forward to, personally, Carson Beck, you know, really being able to see what he can do with his wide receivers, getting some type of rhythm, seeing how he is under a little bit of pressure. We don't know what they're going to bring. I mean, I would think that UT Martin would bring the house, do whatever they can do to combat what Georgia can do. But there's a lot of things that you can still find out about yourself as a unit on the offense and defensive side of the ball when you're healthy and you're out there playing. But, but like George said, it's a practice game, quite honestly. It's UT Martin.
I mean, you mentioned
it's one they need. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's one they need. It's one they have to have just to figure out what they got. Like you mentioned before, get some young guys on the field, some burn, see what you got in that regard. But all look good while doing it. You know, I'm pretty sure Kirby does not want a sloppy game. You know, there's something to prove here. There's a few different, pieces in place. You got a new quarterback, a new coordinator. Got two new tackles. It's showing prove time for a number of positions from on the field to the press box. So I'm pretty sure they're not overlooking UT Martin just because of the fact that there are a lot of new faces. Some significant new.
Whoa, I think we lost Foss. Oh, you came back. You there, Foss?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we lost you for a second. Go ahead, continue your point.
Man, this UT Martin is, it's a warm up game, but it's one that I'm pretty sure they want to look, just because they have, significant pieces, on the team, whether it's coaching wise or on the field, especially with a new QB and new coordinator. We have to get that camaraderie and that synergy, going. And then you got two new tackles, like I said before, it's just what you want to make sure everything's clean this weekend and also next weekend.
Facts. Well, speaking of UT Martin, the game is on Saturday, 6 p.m. at Sanford Stadium. They're led by Jason Simpson. This team was 5-0 last year in their conference, 7-4 overall. They are co-champions coming back from in their conference last year. They did not have a conference championship, which was kind of weird. It was based off of some other things that happened, but they do got some talent coming back, man. I mean, they got 8 players I think that were voted. I think all conference, first team and second team. Good tight end, running back that's coming back, freshman running back. Sam Franklin had over 650 yards, 8 touchdowns. Defensive lineman, All-American, Dalen Dotson, 9.5 sacks last year. We start talking about the offensive line, and we're talking about, George, it better than anybody. It takes you want that line to gel, right? So you want to be able to see what these guys can do when the bullets start flying, especially when you got young guys like Ernest Green, who's going to probably make his first start, hopefully. He's going to be in the lineup. You want to see what Cedric, Von Prong can do coming back. He's the All-American. You want to see if he can maintain the middle of the field, be that crutch for Carson Beck, because there's no better combination than a quarterback in his center. So you want to see these things happen. But UT Martin does have some players. I mean, again, we're talking about an FCS school, but at the very same time, you never want to just discount any player on the opposite side of the field of what they can do or cannot do against your particular team. Graham, what are you looking to see against this UT Martin team? I know we briefly talked about it, but coming out of this game, what do you want to see from these guys?
I want to. I mean, obviously, I think Carson Beck is, everyone wants to check out the new quarterback, but I feel pretty confident in Carson just based off of what we've heard all off season. So, even if he had kind of a mediocre day on Saturday, I don't think I would hit the panic button quite yet. But I'll be curious to check out the D line. I mean, that to me is that's the biggest, I think, like, question that I want to see answered before I'm ready to say that, like, Georgia is about to go march off and win a third straight. You lost Jalen Carter. You don't replace a Jalen Carter with one player, but can you replace him in the aggregate with multiple players is the question. And you know what Stackhouse is. He played more D-line snaps than anybody on the team last year. Like, he's a beast. Zion Logan's had a really good camp. They like Zion. He's up over 300 pounds for the first time ever, and he's still 6'5" and long as hell. So, like, that combo, I think, is kind of your known commodities. But you got a lot of guys that we've seen flash over the years, but they've only ever had to play like 15 snaps in a game. Like, what does Warren Brinson look like if he has to play 40 snaps in a game? What about Tyron Ingram Dawkins? Like, how are some of these younger guys up and coming looking? Like Kristen Miller, that's a name we've heard some on and off, I think, this offseason. Like, is he ready to be impactful? Jordan Hall is a true freshman, but he was a 5-star. Like, is that kid ready to go and play D tackle in the SEC? Because at the end of the day, I mean, the biggest hurdle probably is with the information we have right now. I think we'd all agree Tennessee is probably the biggest challenge on that schedule. And, Georgia was able to dominate them last year because their D-line can two-gap, and they can stop that run even with things all spread out with a light box. And so I want to see, can they do that up front without Jalen Carter, without Nolan Smith in the lineup anymore? Like, what's that edge position look like? We know Michael is Michael at DN. I think everybody feels good about him, but where's Chaz Chambliss at in his sort of progression? Or, what about these 5-star true freshmen, which they have, multiple of at that position? So I think that's what I want to see. And I think that's going to be something that obviously will kind of develop over time. But, I want to see just kind of the raw production or just, the raw execution when those guys get in the game.
What about yourself, George?
You're muted.
Yeah, I think you're muted, boss.
Sorry, fellas.
You good?
I'm looking forward to, like Graham said, I'm looking forward to watching Beck. I have, hopefully he proves me right, but I have extreme confidence in his ability. Just the physical tools. I've seen quarterbacks. I like how the ball comes off his hand. He's more athletic than people think. People think they look at Stetson and he's running around and scrambling and having long touchdowns. Beck is not slow. He might not be as elusive, as a taller guy as Stetson was, but he can move around some. And to me, he has a pretty arm, man. He can throw that football, and I'm looking forward to see him play. I want to see these young edges get off, man. I think there's some potential there. With Michael, with Jones Jr., with some of the young cats that's coming in, that I think they may end up having to play. I'm interested in seeing how they do as far as rushing the passer. I know that's not their MO all the time. They have to play within the system, of course. But I'm looking forward to see how they get off. This is going to be fine. I think D-line will be fine. Um, you know, Jalen made plays within the system. He made plays within the system because he was just a freak of nature. But these guys play. These guys that we have left, they can do what the system calls for as good as anybody we've had in the past. You know what I mean? They're just gonna do it a little different. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be 6'6", 350-pound Jordan Davis in the middle. It's different. You know, but as you saw last year, you know, Jalen missed some time, and they would still be able to play system football, stop the run, and cover with 6'7" DB back. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to that, but probably at the main part, that offense. I just want to see how it looks. It's a lot of new looks on the outside. We still got, Brock, of course. And I'm looking forward to just see how it looks. We've had to do the new look defense, after the first championship. There's going to be sort of new look offense, and I'm looking forward to see how they do. I just want to see how we get it done on offense.
Yeah, I agree. And you brought this up last year, too, in terms of the defense, just getting it done a little bit different. I mean, we looked at the 21 season, and we were like, man, that was generational. Then you look at the 22 season, nobody expected the 22 season defense to play the way they did, but they just did it a little bit different. When you're looking at 23, I think it's the same thing. You no longer have Nolan Smith, the generational leader on the edge, but heck, you didn't have him for 3/4 of the games last year. You didn't have Carter in the middle for 2 or 3 games, just banged up because of injuries, and he wasn't even at full strength 100% the entire season. You're not going to have that guy as well, but you are going to have these pieces that I trust Kirby. I trust his defense to really be in the places that they're supposed to be. And I'm really just excited to see all these young guys that we've heard about, the 5 stars, the big time 4 stars, the guys we've heard in camp that are producing to really get their opportunity to shine. And I think that's the big deal going into this 23 season, is that who is the bona fide leader? There is no Nolan Smith anymore, fellas. You got Dumas Johnson, who's supposed to be the big dog on the, from that linebacking core, who is the bona fide leader, but who else is going to step up to take that mantle of, I'm going to lead us to the promised land? Because you had some guys that would get in each other's faces, grab those face masks and say, pull it together. I'm looking for a guy like Malachi Starks to have a big year this year as a safety. I mean, heck, we already know about the Beats NIL contract he got. So, I mean, obviously they're believing in his ability to be able to, to be what he's supposed to be. But guys like that. Also, Tyke Smith. He's a former All-American, and he was a former All-American for a reason at West Virginia. He's back off the ACL, fully healthy. I'm waiting to see what he means to this defense, because when you start looking at playing a team like South Carolina that likes to spread it out, playing a Tennessee that likes to spread it out, as Graham already alluded to, you got to be able to stop the run, but will you be able to shut down that passing attack as well? That's going to put a lot of pressure on those corners, and we believe in those guys, Lassiter. We believe in those guys like Humphrey and all the depth that they have, but I want to see, can this defense swarm the way that they can and should to allow that comfortable feeling for Beck to really have with this offense? Because I think if he's comfortable, lights out. I mean, I'm just saying it now. It's going to be lights out, because you're going to be able to be really effective offensively the way you have to be and should be at various times. But really, let's think about it, guys, early on, how you have to be, because this running back core is a little bit banged up. You might have to be a little bit creative, especially if you get down to that 3rd week against South Carolina and the bullets really start flying. You might have to be creative because everybody might not be back fully healthy. So I'm looking forward to this defense really putting it together. That's what I'm looking forward to this weekend. But let's transition, man. I really want to also hear your thoughts before we get into like some predictions, SEC predictions, the game predictions, that sort of thing. Who's your breakout star, man? Who's your breakout stars for the season? Even a freshman star, if you want to throw that out there. Who's your guy?
My guy is Carson Beck. He's my breakout player. Hey,
he went straight to the well on that one.
That's my breakout guy, and I'm gonna go even further. Say that, and this will be a good thing, for him, because it'll be a good thing for the Dogs, because it means that it likely means that we're winning or have won a lot of games. I feel like he balls out and becomes a very high prospect.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, I think he balls out. I think he becomes a high prospect, and we're gonna see. We're gonna see who comes along. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it's gonna be a big old, competition after next season. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a big old competition after next. I think Beck is gonna. He has the O-line. It's just gonna look really good for him. Big guy with a rope. Probably gonna win a lot of games. Offensive line gonna keep him clean. We saw it with Stetson. We had a guy that people was wondering gonna play, end up being drafted in the 4th round. You know what I mean? Like nobody expected that 2 years ago. Not a soul. They look at maybe he'll get a shot, he'll be a free agent, blah, blah, blah. But with obviously his skill, but at the same time, that immaculate offensive line, enabled him to do a lot of great things. And I think they're going to do the same thing for Beck. And he's going to have some numbers. He's got receivers out the wazoo, tight ends out the wazoo, and it's going to lead to some really great numbers for him, and possibly a great future at the next level. I won't say too much, since Graham said that I was cheating.
Give us one more, big dog.
Since Graham said that I was cheating,
throw the cherry on top.
I'm gonna throw another one out there, and I'm gonna say, and I'm not, since I've taken up enough time, I'm not gonna elaborate. I'm gonna give one on each side of the ball. One is gonna be Amarius Mims, and the other is gonna be Jones Jr.
I like it a lot. It's well done, man. You just this gonna be tough to top. I'm not gonna lie. You did good.
I think Jones Jr. can give us over 5 sacks. I say he can give us around 7 sacks, and I think Amarius Mims can work himself into top half of the first round.
I would say, if you want like a bold prediction, I'll say Amarius Mims will be the first offensive lineman drafted next May in the NFL draft. I saw a big board this week that had him.
You think so? You think he's gonna climb over the? You think he's gonna climb over the Penn State guy?
I think they're going to be neck and neck, but I think that Mims put on another 15 pounds of muscle this offseason, man. He's up to 340.
He looks crazy.
And he moves like, bro.
Mims, like, he looks like Optimus Prime. You build them type of linemen on Madden.
Exactly.
You build your own player. Yes, you build them like Amarius Mims. No question about it.
Not to mention,
He's big.
you know,
You want them. He's crazy.
he had he also had like that video of from the Ohio State game when they ran that little like perimeter screen to McIntosh and the whole offensive line just like
Right.
jailbreaked
Yeah.
downfield. Bro,
Yeah.
he was like 15, 20 yards downfield, just like cleaning dudes up, man. Like the safety had no chance, and he was like
Yeah.
agile. He wasn't just straight line speed, bro. Like he was, you know, chopping his feet and everything.
He's a pup. He's a pup. He's a pup. He doesn't have a ton of experience, like quality experience. Like he's a pup. He's gonna be a beast. It's up to him, but everything says when you look at him.
I'm with you. All right, so I guess we're doing one offense, one defense, breakout player.
You can do whatever you want. You can choose a kicker if you want. It's up to you, Grant.
Hey, bro. Now that you mention it, keep an eye on the Woodring kid. I think he's going to be I think he's going to be the guy. Yeah. I think so. My breakout player.
I haven't heard much about. Has that been like a battle?
Yeah, I mean, you have Zirkle, who's been in the program for a while, but from what I understand, like Woodring is, you know, he's done well in practices, and he did really well in the scrimmages. Like he was piping them from 49, 50 yards consistently, you know, down the middle. So we'll see what happens. But you know how Kirby is, man. Like he's not gonna play around with special teams. He's gonna make sure they got some consistency out there.
Yeah.
My breakout player on the offense, I mean, like I think we were all, you know, you got the known commodities, you got the Brock Bowers, the McConkeys, the Dominic Lovitz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with Dylan Bell. I think that kid's gonna have a huge year, not just at wide receiver, but as kind of an all-around athlete. I mean, I think we talked about it last week. I think that he's been taking, maybe that was actually after we recorded last week, but I mean, he's been taking first team snaps at running back with some of the injuries going on, and he housed one from, you know, 60, 70 yards out on the first team defense late last week in practice. Like that Joker can move, and he is 6'3", and he's got incredible feet, and he's excellent in the open field. He's good after contact. I saw him on G-Day. I was down on the field pregame, and they were running 7-on-7 drills to warm up, and I watched him go, you know, right over Kamari Lassiter on a contested ball that was a little bit underthrown, honestly, and he just kind of went up and grabbed it right off Lassiter's shoulder pad in midair. I think he's going to surprise some people, and I think it's going to be interesting because I think he's going to emerge in a pretty big way at that X receiver spot and sort of shake up the rotation there a little bit more than people are expecting. And then on defense, you know, again, I mean, there's so many known commodities. Like, I mean, you can't really call like Javon Bullard a breakout player or Starks or, you know, any of these guys, but I'm going to go with Humphrey. I'm going to go with Julian Humphrey. I think he's a kid that, you know, came into the program and didn't quite fit just, you know, naturally with the Georgia way right off the bat, you know, and has worked his butt off and really like assimilated into everything they want him to do. And look, there's no position I think that's harder to win in the country right now than to be a boundary corner at Georgia. You look at the recruiting, you look at the depth. I mean, like Jaheim Singletary was a 5-star kid that was one of the top corners in the country, and he was gone by the end of his freshman year because Humphrey and Dalen Everett and, all these other young kids that are coming up. But I think Humphrey was he was a guy that became a 5-star right at the end of the recruiting cycle. So when he committed to Georgia, there wasn't the fanfare that you normally get with a 5-star, but the hips are just something you don't see on guys that are 6'2" like that. And he's big, and I think he tackles well. And, I like his ability to be big and play press coverage in addition to dealing with twitchier wide receivers. I think it's going to be a pretty special combination of traits.
I think football is the only sport that you can really talk sexy like that when you say, the hips. I'm sorry, I had to laugh. His hips are special. I was in Houston during the time that Humphrey was there. I was in Houston during the time that Dylan Bell was there. So I heard about these guys and, highlights all the time. And so I remember texting you guys and saying Dylan Bell is doing everything at the Kincaid School in Houston. I mean, so when you talk about he's taking running back reps, well, he was playing running back, he was playing quarterback, he was playing wide receiver. He was doing a little bit of everything at the Kincaid School. And when you talk about Humphrey, the thing that impresses me about him is the level of maturity that he's gained since being at Georgia. Remember, Humphrey was more known for his TikTok videos or his Twitter account and all the little flashy things that he was doing. And since then, you haven't heard too much from him. I mean, the kids went to work.
Right.
I haven't seen him on social media at all. I think that he realizes this is my opportunity. He doesn't want to go home. He doesn't want to go anybody taking his spot. And from all accounts, I mean, he's worked his tail off. But I have to agree with George on my splash player on the defensive side of the ball. I was going Marvin Jones Jr. And, I think Michael's going to have a big, big year, fellas. I really think that he's going to have about 10 sacks. But I think a Marvin Jones Jr. can actually come in and have about 7 or 8 sacks and splash plays. He's that special. He's long. He's got the ability to cover out on the edge at the same time. He can go sideline to sideline. I just like his athleticism. And then when we talk about the offensive side of the ball, I mean, obviously everybody was going to say Carson Beck, but and when George brought up, he's going to work himself into a first-round pick, the first person I actually thought about, if he has the year that we anticipate him being able to have with the weapons that he has, I'm talking Lad McConkey, you're talking, the tight end room, the wide receiver room, everything else. Joe Burrow. He can be Joe Burrow-ish with his athleticism. He's not Stetson. Yeah. He's not going to run around and, make people miss all day. But Joe Burrow has enough athleticism and moxie that he commands attention in the locker room, commands attention on the field. And from all accounts, from Kirby and everyone else, I mean, all the kids respect him. He's one of those guys, in the locker room the guys respect. But I'm expecting a breakout year from Carson because he was supposed to be the guy regardless anyway. When you kind of look back at the recruiting process of when Carson was brought in, he was supposed to be the guy to come right after, Jake Fromm. And all of a sudden we're looking at, okay, you got JT Daniels coming in. Oh man, he goes down. Then you got, Carson, who's actually jumped by Stetson Bennett. And heck, you can't, what are you going to tell? I mean, what are you going to say about a guy that wins back-to-back national championships and eventually is going to have his own statue? I mean, there's nothing you can say about that, but it's his time. And I think he's going to be a one and done type kid, man. I think he's really going to have a big time year. And like George said, we're going to be talking about who's going to be the quarterback next year in a big time battle. But I think, we might be getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I think he's Georgia's Mac Jones.
Okay.
Just waited around. I mean, Carson was, I think the number 19 quarterback in his class. Not super heralded, but he's a super toolsy player, right? Yeah. Like 6'4", George just talked about the arm strength and how the ball comes off his hands, but just everybody grows up
he's
on a
pretty
different...
accurate.
I just think, the way he's kind of...
Tell you who he kind of reminds me of?
Who?
I know I'm a bit delayed. That's getting me late. He kind of just the way the ball comes. A lot of people don't really look at this guy I'm about to name as a really good player, but he really was. He just had some unfortunate things about where he played in the league. Um, wasn't the greatest leader, and I don't think your quarterback is your only choice for leader on your. I don't think he has to be, because if it's not, you don't want to force it. Somebody else just has to be it though. You can't not have a leader.
Right.
This guy had all the tools, and Sam Bradford.
Oh yeah.
Good size.
Okay.
Got a nice arm. Can get it in. Like when Sam was on, Sam could play. Sam just didn't have a lot around him at times, and Sam
Terrible injury.
was, like I said, I don't know if Sam was the greatest leader. You know what I mean? But as far as physical tools, Sam could play. Sam could definitely play, and kind of like the way the ball just the way the ball comes off of hand. He kind of reminded me of Sam a little bit, just from being around Sam. In my days.
Well, that's some good breakdowns on those
good.
guys. Yeah, that's some good breakdowns on those guys, man. I'm sure everybody has their thoughts. The listeners do, the fans do. Heck, we know the SEC does in terms of who's going to be breakout players and so forth. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see this first game and see what actually comes about and who's really going to step up and take the opportunity, because Kirby's going to give you the opportunity. As long as you maintain and do what you got to do, you're going to keep it. But let's get into something else, man, before we close down the night. Some SEC predictions, some season predictions on the Dogs. You got the SEC East, you got the SEC West. It's going to be the last year you're really going to see this type of setup. I already know who's going to win the SEC East. I know you guys probably do as well. So we can go over to the SEC West. What are your thoughts on the SEC West?
Mm-hmm.
Don't sleep on Texas A&M.
Woo!
Don't sleep.
You going bold.
Look, man, the 24/7 Sports dropped their talent composite rankings today, right? Which, it's just raw talent on your roster, regardless of position. So it's a flawed metric in a sense, but it is representative of what you got. Texas A&M is up there, man. Like they're up there. Alabama's number 1, Georgia's number 2, but A&M is up there. And I just think if you look at my belief, and I think, this is why I love doing a show with George Foster, former offensive lineman, is that when we do this preseason stuff, everybody focuses on quarterback, wide receiver. They focus on the positions further away from the football. And I think we all believe that the game is still won and lost in the trenches. The game is still about blocking and tackling. And if you cannot tackle somebody or you can't block somebody, then you're going to get beat. And I think Texas A&M, you look at that front seven, what they got on the D line, it's nasty. And I think that they can break a lot of games with their front seven. And I think that Wegman is a good quarterback. I don't know that he's great, but I think their receiver core might be the best in the conference, their first 3. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but if you're expecting them to go 7-5, I would shift that expectation, because my personal belief is that they're gonna get one of LSU or Alabama. I don't think they'll beat both, but I think they'll snatch off one of them, and I think they'll handle everybody else in the division as well.
Wow.
Well,
so who wins the West for you, though?
I'm taking LSU to win the division
with the same that's playing this year. Well, supposedly, we'll see.
With Milroe,
and I imagine Milroe will be better, but still should have beat Bama last year.
Yeah, I'm taking LSU to win the division. What about you guys?
Who you got, George?
That's tough, man. LSU is going to be coached well. I don't know if I'm a full believer in. Is his name Jalen or Jay? Or
Daniels? Jalen Daniels? Yeah, Jalen Daniels.
Jalen.
Jaden. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Jaden Daniels.
I don't know if I'm a full believer. You know, do they still got Meyer? What's his name? Was he still there?
Who's
Who?
that?
Is that his name?
Jaden Daniels?
The
Yeah, he's there.
quarterback.
Yeah, he's still there.
Yes. No, the backup.
Oh,
Yeah,
Nussmeier.
Nussmeier.
Yeah, he's
What was his
there.
name?
And that
Is it
kid's the
Nussmeier?
truth, bro. Yeah, Garrett
Yeah.
Nussmeier.
Yeah, he's got a
Yeah. So
a rocket.
so they, if it's not Daniels, him, man, it's tough to say. I probably got to put you too. Just the unknown Alabama quarterback. I don't know. I just don't know. You know what I mean? So the safe bet is LSU. They went to the SEC championship last year. Not sure if there's a reason why they can't do it again.
I think it's a clean sweep. I was going with LSU myself. When you look at the instability of the quarterback position at Bama and the carousel of coaches and the philosophy change, I mean, I really think Bama's going to go more towards running the football this year. I think that they feel that they're going to have to grind out some games and realize that they're going to have to grind out some games. They got some pretty big, games on their schedule. They got to go to Texas A&M, which I think that's going to be the loss on their schedule. They play an LSU, which I think will be another loss on their schedule. I think they easily come out of there with two losses, and it's going to be a toss-up with Tennessee, quite honestly. But LSU, I think Brian Kelly is a very good football coach. He's a little bit of a clown, and that little spectacle he pulled last year with becoming the LSU's coach, and his extra Southern drawl that he threw out there and everything else was crazy. But the guy can flat out coach. And if he had players at Notre Dame, he probably would have won a national championship. And unfortunately, they can't. They got recruiting restrictions. So I think the guy can coach. But the only problem with LSU is if they have a hiccup, because it comes down to, like you said, George, that the quarterback position. It's all going to start the very first game of the year when they play Florida State. Can they beat Florida State? They beat Florida State. They got a pretty favorable schedule the rest of the way outside of Alabama. But I do got to go to what Graham said. I mean, this kind of threw me back with Texas A&M. And the only reason I'm saying that is because, there once was a guy that made $1 billion selling chicken. And he was just like everybody else. He had 11 herbs and spices. But not everybody can put together 11 herbs and spices and make that thing cook. Not only that, huh?
I think it's 7 herbs and spices.
No, 11 herbs and spices, baby. I was slinging that chicken back.
Oh, my bad. All right.
back in the day. Yeah, 11 herbs and spices. And then on top of it, he said, you know what? I got to use a special kind of way of cooking in a little pressure cooker. Only Kirby can take 11 herbs and spices along with the pressure cooker and make it something special. Texas A&M ain't doing that at all, bro. Texas A&M, you got 11 herbs and spices.
I'm not saying
Jimbo's
winning titles, man.
No, I know that, but I just don't trust Jimbo Schiffer.
I don't trust Jimbo either, but I trust Bobby Petrino to score points. And
yeah,
I mean,
it's gonna be it's a power struggle.
Look, I could see them having like a 10-2, 9-3 season.
Ooh. I can see 8-4. I can see 8-4. I'll go as high as 8-4.
When I was at media days, they made us fill out our preseason
season.
ballots. I put A&M second in the division. I put Bama third.
Ooh. Okay,
I'll ride with it. I'll take the consequences.
Hey man, you're the guy that can bring all the all the money in from the bets. So you know what I mean. So I'm gonna ride with you though. Yeah, I'm just gonna let it go right now on that. SEC East, we already know, clean sweep. It's gonna be them dogs. I got them going undefeated in the conference. Should be undefeated in the conference. Who do you got coming in second? That's really what it comes down to.
It's tough. I still think I gotta say. I think it's got to stay Tennessee for now, but I could see Kentucky challenging for that spot.
I agree. I think it comes down to losses. I don't think Kentucky's going to lose too many. I think Kentucky has a pretty good year this year. Maximum 3 losses. Maximum.
Yeah, probably, maybe. Their schedules, but they got to play Bama and Georgia this year.
Again, Bama can slip up. As long as you can control the trenches, and that's something that Kentucky has done very well, quite honestly, under Stoops. I mean, they have really been good in the trenches. They can run the football. If you can keep an explosive offense off the field, which they try to do with Georgia, just couldn't, you just can't stop the onslaught of what Georgia has. You can actually stay in ball games, and I think the instability of Alabama's quarterback play, I mean, that can cause a lot of hiccups for them all around. But what were you going to say, George?
With the Tennessee, you kind of have to put them second, and then Kentucky is interesting, So it'd be interesting to see. I feel like there's several teams that could easily be middle of the road in the East, which is not bad when you want to average out how the conference is. There's a lot of teams that are, teams that I feel like are middle of the road.
I like Mizzou, just for the record.
We shall see.
Ooh, there's another one, fellas.
I forgot about Mizzou. Yeah.
That defense is good. If they can get some decent quarterback play, then I think they could beat, 5 of the teams in the SEC East.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, fellas,
they had me scared last year.
I think they had everybody scared, man. Everybody was sitting there on the edge of their seat like, this is not about to happen to Mizzou.
I was like, oh, man, no. We got a repeat. What are we doing?
Oh, man.
And I was in New Orleans at a festival, and I couldn't get a good signal. And I was like, no, I can't. I don't know what's going on. They were down. The next thing you know, I could get a signal, and then we were up at the end. I was like, ooh. Boy, when I said the weight of the world lifted off of my shoulders.
Man, that was a scary game. That was, I think it had a lot of people sick. It had a lot of people drunk. Had a lot of people making babies at the end of the night. All kind of stuff was happening. There's a lot of emotions going around. I'll tell you that, no doubt about it. But fellas, we've had a good night. We have video now. We are able to do some things that we have not done in the past. I enjoy it. I can't wait to continue this process. A lot of pop-up shows, a lot of live shows. We got a lot of things coming down the pipe, so I can't wait. But we got football on Saturday, fellas. Don't go too far from your televisions.
Bro,
if you're not going to be at the game, George, you going to the game?
Football tomorrow.
We sure do.
Yeah. What's your prediction? What's the pick?
But what for tomorrow?
Yeah. Who you got?
Or Saturday?
Who you got for Utah? Florida?
It's hard to say.
I know it is. I'm struggling with it.
I wish I wish Rising was playing. But they got to go into Utah. I'm gonna pick Utah by. I think the elevation is going to get to Florida, and they're going to lose to Utah. 21-17.
I like it.
Yep.
All Utah,
huh?
Grant, I'm just gonna say this. Mertz. He was a turnover machine at Wisconsin. Wisconsin under Paul Chris is a very vanilla offense, and if you continue to turn the ball over there, you are not going into big-time ball, whether it's playing Utah, which is the number 14 team in the country, or the SEC, and really having a productive year. Now, I know Florida fans are excited about it. They're excited about Mertz being the quarterback. They think they have a consistent arm under center, more accurate than maybe AR-15 might have been last year. I'm not sure why they think that, but there's no possible way that he's not going to turn the ball over at an alarming rate this season, in my personal opinion. But I'm going Utah winning this game outright, 27-13.
All right. I know that Rising's not playing, but the offensive line's still playing. The running backs are still playing.
Facts.
I think Utah is going to line up the football and they're going to run at Florida, and we're going to find out if they've really been able to build depth on that defensive front, because that was a big weakness last year of their team, was the lack of depth. And I know they beat Utah in the swamp last year, but Utah also had 3 times where they drove within the 10-yard line and didn't score, and they lost that game by 6 points. That was with Rising, but Florida, everybody, especially on the Georgia side, and I've been guilty of it at times. We pick on Anthony Richardson, but you go back and look at some of the things he did, dude. That guy was a special player. He could, any moment he might just pop a run, 70 yards, touchdown, break 5 tackles, and he did that.
Right.
They don't have that. No, they don't have that explosiveness, and that's what scares me. And Utah's defense is healthy, so I'm gonna say that it's rare that an SEC team kind of loses a line of scrimmage game like that, but I think it happens tomorrow night, because I just don't think Florida's got enough to threaten them downfield. Other than Pearsall, I don't know who stretches the field, who they're going to be able to bomb it out to. So I'm going to go – I think it's going to be a slugfest, though. I'm going to say Utah 23, Florida 17.
Okay. There you go. Clean sweep, though. Clean sweep.
Close.
We're going to continue to be Gator haters. We'll throw something out at Silk. Let him know how we feel. Put it in the chats.
Drop it.
All right, fellas, man. Let's get ready to get up out of here. I know we all got things to do. Get ready to prepare for football tomorrow. As always, see y'all boys at 100 Sanford.
See you.
Go Dogs.
Ooh, there it is.
Thank you for listening to the 100 Sanford Podcast. Tune in weekly to hear fresh content from the 100 Sanford Podcast every Thursday, but also with some pop-up shows every now and then as news breaks. You can also follow the content on our website, www.100sanfordpodcast.com, and email us at dogs@100sanfordpodcast.com. Lastly, reach out to us on social media streams. For Twitter, it's @100Sanford, but on IG, TikTok, Facebook, and other accounts, it's 100 Sanford Podcast. All right, folks, that's it. And as usual, see you at 100 Sanford.